Ladies, gentlemen, and Harajam of all ages, a few days have passed since the release of Season 5 for Diablo 4, and with it has come a number of new fun mechanics, but the one that keeps on giving and rewarding more and more is the infernal hordes. This place is unbelievably high on monster density, and with the right upgrade choices between waves, it becomes the best XP farm, but it also does a lot more than that too once you actually know how to take advantage of it properly. And there are also some pretty hefty sources of endgame boss ladder summoning materials and Stygian stones, which you can get from an activity that most people won't try to push as quickly as they maybe should, because, well, let's just say that torment bosses drop mythic uniques very quickly this season compared to before. I was farming them for just a few hours yesterday and I got 7. I wouldn't have gotten 1 in that time in the way the system worked last season. That said, today we're going to talk about the best way to farm gold in Season 5, as well as the best way to get crafting materials like Masterwork materials or gem shards too, and we'll also talk about boss ladder materials and especially Stygian stones, as those are quite important too for enabling proper mythic unique farming once you are strong enough to do so. And it's worth mentioning our Discord server exists, and you can find this in the description of the video, always linked here, and this is always just full of kitted out players who are absolutely willing to help you if they have the summon materials to summon these bosses in Torment version, but are lacking the firepower a little bit. Moving on then, let's start with gold and crafting materials, as those sort of have to be discussed together. They are both best farmed quite clearly from the infernal hordes, the new activity this season, with the scaling of the rewards of each of these increasing dramatically with each tier, but with some interesting additional breakpoints worth talking about. Gold specifically drops in heaps from this, with a tier 6 horde giving nearly 40 million gold if you just dump in all of your aether at the end of this, and obviously that's an extremely good exchange rate for a 10-minute or so activity that you can do even in just a mostly set up endgame build, not even a fully set up one, not even one that has proper masterworking done. This beats the speed of doing Whispers of the Dead by a large amount, which were the best gold farming method before this, and there's no real nuance to doing this honestly past higher tier hordes give a better exchange rate for gold, so always do the highest one that you can comfortably complete if your main goal is getting gold. That said, we should also move on to the second part of this, the other main thing that you can farm from the infernal hordes quite easily that isn't obviously items, and this comes from the material chests that you can spend your aether on too. You can open one of these chests for every 20 aether that you have to spend at the end of the hordes activity, and what is inside of this is a pile of gem fragments to help you get your higher tier gems sorted out quicker, a bunch of abyssal scrolls, some of the materials needed to add gem sockets to gear as well, and then also masterworking materials. At tier 6 and above, this will also give you a chance at dropping a Stygian stone, which are the materials that are needed to summon the torment version of the ladder bosses, which is quite important. The thing worth noting here though is if your goal is specifically masterworking materials, which is a lot of what people will want to get from the hordes on repeat, and it is an important grind for endgame builds generally, there are some tiers that are better than others to farm. Tier 4 is the first one that this becomes properly relevant as a farming place, as it's where you can get blue rarity masterworking materials, and then at tier 5 you upgrade to ingolith, which are the yellow rarity material, the second one, and at tier 6 you get just slightly more ingolith. Specifically, it goes up from 20 ingolith gained per chest at tier 5 to 22 ingolith in tier 6, which is actually a very small gain when you consider the difficulty jump from tier 5 hordes to tier 6. So if you are at the stage where a lot of people are going to wind up stuck for a bit, which is around the tier 5 to 6 infernal hordes range, know that tier 5 is actually the more efficient of these two to farm masterworking specifically. This changes in tier 7 and 8 as well, as these give you neathiron, the final material, and in those tiers, basically tier 7 is again more efficient, just like tier 5 is compared to tier 6, for the raw masterworking materials, except if you become just like some sort of godlike level of power where the tier 8 boss takes less than 5 minutes to kill, because that is basically the requirement to make it properly worth it, because for most people that boss is going to be a very long experience and is going to be the sticking point of doing tier 8 hordes. So again, tier 7 is likely better for these materials. Josh told me that he did one just recently and he got like 400 neathiron from a single tier 7 hordes, and that is an insane amount. And I mean, while we're here, we might as well talk about it too. If you're looking for a way to farm legendary aspects to just try and get the highest level versions of each aspect into your codex as quickly as possible, the best way to do that, generally speaking, is not infernal hordes technically, because it's actually torment ladder bosses if you can farm them on repeat, as they just drop an absolutely insane number of legendary items at the end of every single kill, pretty much the majority of a whole inventory's worth if you actually pick everything up, and then you can salvage everything, go right back, do it again, over and over on repeat, but that's obviously limited by your amount of Stygian stones. If you want something permanent though that doesn't require Stygian stones, then back to the infernal hordes, and the reason for this is because of mainly the greater affix chest that you can open for 60 aether at the end, which you should almost always open unless you really don't care for it at all, because it gives you very high value as far as the amount of legendaries that you get for the amount of Aether that you spend. It's much better value than the equipment chest, which is 2 legendaries for 20 Aether, pretty much consistently, so that you can just roll that on repeat. Otherwise, that one is going to be your best way to just collect aspects once you've already gotten the greater affix chest. If the only thing you care about is legendary aspects, then just throw your Aether directly into that legendary chest and get a bunch of them. For these, you don't really have to worry about doing particularly high level ones. As long as you're doing ones that are tier 3 and above, you will get pretty much the possibility of getting the maximum roll on every legendary aspect, and these will just be faster to complete because they will be easier, you'll get more Aether from being able to kill enemies faster, things like that, simple as that. Then we have one final sort of stop to talk about here today, which is ladder boss materials and especially Stygian stones. And well, aside from the Stygian stones dropping at higher tiers of the infernal hordes activity, which we talked about, just genuinely higher drop rate the higher tier you go, and these come from the crafting material chest once again. But compared to last season, outside of that, these methods are mostly the same as they used to be as far as farming the base boss summoning materials. That said, again, there are 2 very specific things that you can go out of your way to do this season to just get an absolute load of these to start you off properly. The first of these is from the reputation system, as the last couple of rewards in the reputation track give you a bunch of boss ladder materials and a bunch of Stygian stones. And this, funnily enough, is best farmed in the infernal hordes as well. The reason for this is the amount of reputation that you gain depends on the amount of elites and bosses that you kill and the speed that you can do this. The most dense place to find elite and boss type enemies is within the infernal hordes, so if you pick upgrades when going through the infernal hordes between waves, things like getting Hellborn added in, bonus Hellborn on top of that, Aether Lords as well, counting as full-on bosses as far as the reputation is concerned, and so you can gain a ton of reputation by just doing earlier or mid-tier hordes and going for these kinds of upgrades in a setting where it won't probably one-shot you in most setups, even that aren't properly filled out yet, and this will give you a ton of reputation very, very quickly. The second method then to get a bunch of these boss ladder summoning materials is actually Chapter 6 and also Chapter 7 of the Season Journey, both of which give you a box with loads of these items within them. These are a little bit less of an auto-completing thing than the reputation rewards. You can make reputation happen faster, but no matter what, everyone's going to hit that reputation box, because it sort of just builds passively because you will kill elites and bosses from doing any activity in the game. These, however, a bit harder because you specifically need to go out of your way to complete the chapters. But to put it simply, it's just very much worth it this season. Aside from the load of summons that you get from this, you also get a bunch of legendaries and ancestral uniques locked to 925 item power, chances at greater affixes and such on all of these too, so the system is simply a lot more rewarding than it used to be, and definitely worth diving into as well. That just about does it for today then, everyone. The best ways to farm gold, to farm crafting materials, and to farm masterworking materials in Season 5 for Diablo 4, as well as also boss summon materials in the Season 2. We have had lots of changes going on in the game, and most of them seem to just make the experience more efficient across the board for the people that know how to take advantage of these types of things, and I am enjoying that it feels like we just have less bottlenecks to worry about to actually have to try and slowly break through when trying to increase our player power. I hope you've all enjoyed this video then, and hopefully it helps you out as well if you actually act on this advice for your actual journey within Season 5 yourself. Like if you liked the video, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet. Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.